We are live. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Hey. Talofa lava, Maloelele, Bulavinaka, from the Pacific Climate Change Center hosted here at SPREP. We are tuning in from Apia Samoa, and warm welcome to all our participants, but also a special welcome to our panelists and our presenters for this afternoon. The webinar is on Earth observation technologies for climate change resilience in the Pacific Island countries and territories. And I'm happy to also acknowledge the partners that have put this webinar together. The JICA Pacific Climate Change Center Project, Innovative Solutions for Pacific Climate Change Resilience. And it's co-organized by the Pacific Community Digital Earth Pacific. My name is Ofa Kaisami, and I am the manager of the Pacific Climate Change Center, hosted here at SPREP. It is my privilege and pleasure to welcome you, but also I will be your moderator for today. Without further ado, I have invited our colleague from JICA, Hipia-san, and I welcome you, Hipia, and give you the opportunity to deliver an opening remarks for our webinar this afternoon. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ofa-san. Can you hear me?
Can hear you perfectly clear.
Talofa lava, and warm greetings to all distinguished participants and speakers and partners joining us today. On behalf of the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, I'm honored to deliver opening remarks instead of our director, Yukichi Usui, at this important webinar co-organized by the Pacific Climate Change Center, SPC Digital Arts Pacific, and the ISCCR project. I would like also to express my appreciation to the speakers and panelists joining us today for generously agreeing to share their experience and knowledge. This session marks an important step in our collective journey to harness innovative climate change solutions for resilience in the Pacific region. JICA has long supported efforts to strengthen climate action in Pacific Island countries. We believe that Earth observation technologies, including satellite data, offer transformative potential to enhance climate resilience, inform policy, and empower communities. These tools are enablers of evidence-based decision-making. We acknowledge the leadership of the PCCC in convening this dialogue together with SPC through the Pacific Climate Change Innovation Lounge. By bringing together data providers, users, and innovators, this platform fosters collaboration and knowledge sharing that are vital for scaling up EO applications in the region. As we listen to today's presentations and discussions, let us reflect on how we can work together to overcome challenges, build partnerships, and ensure that EO technologies and data are accessible, usable, and impactful to all Pacific communities. Thank you once again for your participation and commitment. JICA remains dedicated to supporting innovation and resilience in the Pacific, and we look forward to the outcome of today's webinar. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hipia-san, for those remarks. And I think you have really set the scene for us to kickstart with the webinar. And again, you have touched on the key outcomes of the webinar, which is to improve our understanding of Earth technologies and satellite data applications in building climate resilience and addressing disaster risk or risk reduction. But also you touch on strengthening partnerships between Pacific stakeholders, which is, I think, one of the key outcomes that we would like to continue the discussion beyond the webinar. And again, we look forward to hearing the challenges and the opportunities to scale up the use of Earth technologies and satellite data in climate-related planning and climate project implementation. So I thank you for your remarks, Mr. Hibiya-san. Colleagues, I will now turn into a short one-slide presentation on the work that the Pacific Climate Change Center has been delivering, but also has been entrusted to deliver for our Pacific countries. And you may wonder why the Pacific Climate Change Center is the convener of the webinar. Is really because we have a service on innovation and really looking into utilizing innovative climate change solutions for resilience through the work of the center. In September this year, we launched the Pacific Climate Change Innovation Lounge. And the launch was actually, the idea was really to host, solutions that are fit for purpose, solutions that are affordable, but solutions that has the ability to be scaled up and scaled out for our countries. We've conducted 8 webinars within the platform, and I'm happy that that this platform is also hosting this webinar and upcoming webinars for the Pacific. You can see the QR code for the lounge. So once you enter the lounge, you will see the sort of services that we want to provide to our countries, but also to our partners through the lounge. It is actually designed to bring global and Pacific innovators, practitioners, researchers, policymakers, and development partners to a virtual space to have that discussion on how the countries in the Pacific can access solutions for building climate resilience. That's my 1 minute and 1 slide presentation. For more information, you can contact the team at the Pacific Climate Change Center on the email provided on the slide. Thank you. I would like to now invite our colleague from the Global Satellite Mapping of Precipitation and the Sentinel Observation Support Satellites, Ms. Natsumi Ueda and Ms. Yuki Tanaka, to please provide a presentation on the technologies for climate change action that your organization is currently implementing. And may I remind the presenters today that you have 10 minutes. So if you see me raise my left hand, that means you have 1 minute to deliver and conclude your presentation. Over to you, Ueda-san. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bula Binaka. Hello, konnichiwa. We are from Japan and Japanese space agency called JAXA. I'm Natsumi Ueda. It's a pleasure to virtually meet you all today. Today, we'd like to introduce our space-based disaster management project called Sentinel-Asia. For those who are familiar with space-based information, or even if you are new, we hope you'll get inspired and interested in using space-based information after today. Let me give you a quick quiz. So these 2 images were taken by satellites, but with different type of sensors. Could you guess what they are? The answer is Mount Fuji. In the picture on the left, many of you probably recognize mountain easily. This is optical satellite data, which looks like just photograph, so it's easy to understand. However, as you can see, there are some clouds covering Mount Fuji. These clouds prevent us from seeing what's happening on the ground, which can be an issue during disaster response activity. What about the image on the right? This is radar satellite data. Since radar data doesn't have color, so it can look unfamiliar and make it harder for some people to recognize mountains or detect changes. However, one of the advantages of radar satellite is that they can penetrate clouds and observe even at night and during bad weather. JAXA operates 2 radar satellites called ADOS series. Through Central Asia, we don't just provide such satellite data, we translate them into action-ready information and share those information with disaster management organization to support quick response. Let me briefly introduce how Central Asia is working. Central Asia supports the entire disaster management cycle, but our main focus is on the response phase. After a disaster occurs, a requester can submit an emergency observation request. In response, satellites conduct emergency observation. Once the observation is complete, the satellite data is translated into action-ready information and delivered to the requester. Sounds cool and smooth, right? You might be wondering who's actually make this happen. Well, as of October 2025, Central Asia has 127 member organizations across Asia Pacific region, and JAXA serves as the secretariat. We are working together as one team. Our members fall into 3 categories. 1, space agency who operate satellites and provide data. 2nd, university and research institutions who translate, analyze the data to information. Lastly, disaster management and international organizations, including UNOCHA, World Bank, WFP, JICA. From the Pacific region, NDRMO Fiji and SPC from Fiji, and NDC from PNG, and NDRMO Tonga are our members. Central Asia was established in 2006, so next year marks its 20th anniversary. Since operations began in 2007, the number of activations has been increasing. So far, there have been over 500 activations and more than 2,000 disaster assessment maps are providing through Central Asia. One thing I would like to highlight about Central Asia is that all activities are carried out on a voluntary basis. Also, some of you may be familiar with International Disaster Charter. Once you become a member of Central Asia and need additional space-based information, you can escalate your request from Central Asia to the charter and access more information. Now let me introduce you to the typhoon case. September in 2024, Typhoon Yagi hit the Philippines and passed from Vietnam to Myanmar. Unfortunately, we had more than 600 casualties due to this typhoon. For Typhoon Yagi, we received several activations, but let me introduce you the Vietnam case. From Vietnam, we received an emergency observation request on September 4th. Since a Typhoon Yagi was predicted to make landfall on September 8th, we JAXA conducted an emergency observation with our radar satellite based on this prediction on September 8th evening in UTC, which was the timing right after landfall caused several damages. A couple of days later, we provided disaster assessment map to the requester, thanks to the Force-by data analyzer. This is just one of the information we provided. This is called Detected Flood Water Map, which was provided the Asian Institute of Technology. These blue colored areas are the detected flood water. Not only the PDF file I just showed you, but we also provide information in WebGIS format like this, so users can zoom in and out their interesting areas by themselves. Lastly, this is our website. If you click the Emergency Observation tab on the left corner, and you can click one case, for example, Typhoon Yagi. In Vietnam, you can find the analyzed information in various formats such as WebGIS, shapefile, KMZ. All of them are open to you and the public, so you can download and use them. Please visit our website from the QR code here. Now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Yuki-san.
Thank you, Natsumi-san. And hello, everyone. My name is Yuki Tanaka from JAXA. And now let me introduce you how Sentinel Asia contribute to other phases as well. So at the preparedness phase, we have annual meetings to share the good practices among our members. as well as offer some training workshops for capacity building. In addition, this May, thanks to the support of JICA, JAXA had an opportunity to give a 4-day training opportunity for meteorological services from 19 countries across the Pacific region. Together, we reviewed past activities in the Pacific region and also discussed how to better utilize forecast for smoother activations and quicker response. Also, we organize and offer tailor-made training opportunities upon request. This January, Natsumi-san visited Fiji to explore how we could further support Sentinel Asia members' activities. And as a result, SPC requested a training session to enhance the understanding of disaster assessment maps across various roles and also countries in the Pacific. This training aims to support smoother response and also more effective information sharing. And we plan to organize the training this November 24th and 25th, both in person at Suva in Fiji and also online. At the mitigation phase, we started new efforts. Since Sentinel Asia has almost 20 years of history, we started to produce emergency observation request history maps that overlays detected past flood water information into one WebGIS tool. Thanks to doing so, we can visualize the potential disaster risks and also can encourage understanding disaster risks with high resolution. Also, this map may also help establishing disaster management plans. It is one of the expected outcome and goals of Sendai framework. And now let me introduce you a tool which contributes to mitigation phase. This animation shows the satellite-based global rainfall that is called GSMAP, and it provides real-time updates every hour on around 10-kilometer resolution. And GSMAP is increasingly used to monitor the rainfall in the region with limited access to the ground observation. In addition, GSMAP can also provide the rainfall over the ocean. In this regard, GSMAP is operationally used by the meteorological agencies in the Pacific region, including Fiji. And now let's take a look at GSMAP to monitor Typhoon Yagi, which caused significant damage Southeast Asia last year. So you can see how the area of heavy rainfall gradually approached from the ocean. And since GSMAP has over 25 years of data, we can identify extreme rainfall in real time. The dark pink area indicates the top 1% extreme daily rainfall. And such detection and assessment of extreme events are used in WMO's space-based weather and climate extremely monitoring project as well. And though GSMAP provides similar rainfall distribution to radar rain gauge analysis result, there is still a difference in rainfall amount. But in order to reduce this gap, now JAXA is developing a tool called GLINT, which can calibrate GSMAP data using ground-based precipitation data. So the figure on the right top shows the calibrated result in Japan, demonstrating improved rainfall accuracy with GLINT. GLINT will be released as open source next year, so please look forward to it. Oh, thank you. So we hope space technologies will support you and unite us to tackle disasters. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Natsumi-san and Yuki-san, for providing us with information on the JEXA, but also the tools that are available, and maybe something that the countries can tap into for building their resilience in both climate change and disaster. I'm actually on your website, and I think I will have to request another session. It's quite an interesting tool, and as I mentioned, I think this partnership can also be forged through the Pacific Climate Change Innovation Lounge as a place where we can also promote the use of those technologies. So thank you very much for the presentation. Leveraging Earth observation and special technology for climate resilience. And I'm happy to invite our colleague, Mr. Khaled Meshfiq, the Regional Liaison Officer for Asia and the Pacific of the United Nations Satellite Center, or UNOSAT, to please provide a presentation on leveraging Earth observation and special technology for climate resilience. Over to you, Mr. Khaled.
Good morning, Bula Vinaka. I hope you can
Bula
hear
Vinaka.
me well.
I can hear you clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let me put on my screen. One second. Right slide. Okay. So first of all, big thanks to SPREP for inviting UNOSAT to present in this webinar. And in this webinar, I will just focus on the various activities we have done in the Pacific, and we remain on standby to support Pacific in any way we can, because we have been working with various countries in the Pacific since 2018. So I'll show you quickly what kind of activities we have done in Pacific, and also touch upon the different activities that we are trying to do in other areas, in other geographic regions, using frontier technology, AIs, big data analytics. In short, UNOSAT is a program of UNITA, United Nations Institute for Training and Research. We have been in operation since 2001, and our mandate is to provide geospatial analysis and also decision support information to UN member states, and as well as UN sister agencies. We have three key pillars of our activity. One is humanitarian rapid mapping, that is emergency mapping service we extend to all UN member states all over the world. It's kind of similar to what my colleagues had just shown. And we also have a pillar that is capacity development, because we are part of UNITA. So whatever knowledge we gain through mapping all over the world for last 20 odd years or so, we extend through capacity development. And we want the national stakeholders to gain capacity so they can map themselves without needing the help of externals. And the third pillar is the key pillar now, that is applied research and innovation. We work extensively to bring any frontier technology to operation, because we see a lot of research and publication in frontier technology. What we try to do, we take it and we apply in operational scenario and cases. So I'll give you some examples in a bit. So this is our flagship activity that has been operational since 2003. And this is a service we provide to all UN member states, free of cost, 24/7 operational. And this is a statistics from last year only. We were activated 73 times. We developed more than 400 products. And these products are also distributed openly through our portal and website to all UN member states. And we are also very closely linked with the UN humanitarian system. So mostly our requesters are UN OCHA, and also all other UN agencies like WFP, FAO sometimes request us to map emergency events. So as you can see, majority of the events are floods and hydrometeorological hazards. So these are some of the products we provide at different phases of the disaster. So phase one, when emergency just happens, we provide situation reports. And towards the end, we also compile and aggregate various information, and we publish through our portal as web maps, as reports, as needed by the situational demand. This is one example where we kind of added frontier technology. When we were analyzing radar images, as my colleague from JAXA just mentioned about radar analysis, this is something we have been also facing a lot, because during flood rainy season, we have to switch to radar images because optical images, there is a lot of cloud cover. But processing radar image is a big task. One image to process, it takes about 6 to 8 hours. And if you want to cover a country, it might take you a few weeks to analyze the data. So what we did, we created an automatic pipeline that downloads those images, processes these images and extracts the flood. Not only that, it automatically creates the statistics on the right-hand side. So by a district area or administrative area, you will know how many people are exposed and how much cropland will be exposed. And this is done semi-automatically, because we have a human in the loop, meaning whatever coming out from AI, we just don't publish. A human will inspect, experienced analyst will inspect and will publish. And this is a product we have deployed in 3 countries already. And every year during monsoon season, we start this pipeline, and it is automatically feeding information to various governments. So this is an example from Bangladesh. Now switching to Pacific, in Pacific we started actually in 2017 through our flagship project Common Sensing, which some of you may know already. And since 2018 we started implementation on the ground. And what we also realized from ourselves, like we used to do one-off trainings, like 1 week, 2 week training, and we used to leave the country. And we realized this is not sustaining the capacity. Rather, a longer term engagement can create new experts, can create new capacity, and can also sustain the capacity. So we started working on 2 back-to-back projects. One is Common Sensing, another was funded by NORAD. And the idea of these 2 projects were to kind of sustain the capacity, not only develop capacity, but to sustain the capacity in Fiji, Vanuatu, and Solomon Island. And what we did there, we did a lot of training, but we also developed lots of decision support tools that are tailored for country context and country need. So in that project itself, we developed and delivered 35 technical trainings. Almost 600 participants were reached. We had 3 other countries outside Pacific, but this is just the scale of activities we did, because we had a longer term engagement. And every training was different, because we tailored the training based on the needs of the participants. So here you see examples of big data analytics with Google Earth Engine, risk mapping, and also decision support tools. And in 3 of these countries, we had a technical expert sitting within the government. So that kind of backstopped a lot of need from the government of having ad hoc maps. I can give you an example for Disaster Awareness Week. Solomon Island needed to have a tsunami evacuation map. So our technical expert embedded within NDMO was able to generate those tsunami evacuation maps to support the awareness raising and community resilience building. And this we provided this kind of support in 218 different activities. So finally, one of the key products that we kind of pioneered in Pacific is decision support application, because we realized Pacific is quite data rich. unlike what we may have a perception about, Pacific has a lot of risk model, data model that can do prediction about the future losses and risk. However, most of the information is quite scientific and not very easy for the decision makers to understand. So what we started doing, we started taking those scientific information, secondary information, and overlay with other socioeconomic indicators, and started creating charts, graphs that supports decision making. So, and these web applications, we launched about 24 web applications back in 2024. However, our portfolio keeps increasing, and as we can see, during disaster situation and during preparatory phases, these web applications are used by a lot of experts and stakeholders. For example, we had a total view count of 11,000 for all of these web applications that we launched. This is an example where we use Sentinel-2 data to map the mangrove extent. This was done together with the Ministry of Forestry in Fiji. This is one example. We did community vulnerability assessment through drone flight and very high resolution mapping for 16 vulnerable communities that was planned for relocated. This is a decision support system that we developed for Fiji, Solomon Island, and Vanuatu. And all of these decision support systems are currently being used by relevant government agencies. What it does, once you click in one of the admin area, you are able to see all the key indicators and risk metrics. For example, right-hand side, you see exposure to hazard, vulnerability, lack of coping capacity, and all of the key information about the district is plotted together in one dashboard. So decision makers can make an easy decision. So these are some of the other examples. For the sake of time, I'll skip through. For example, it shows what are the low-lying areas that will get inundated from the coastal hazard. This is if we are supposed to do a smart planning or relocation, how we can use the multiple layers of risk and vulnerability, so we know where to locate. Now, finally, one of the product that we had to do, and that was the easiest to do, but that was the most useful, because many agencies like us are developing web apps and web maps for different projects. But when we talk to the government stakeholders, it's really impossible for them to keep up with so many tools that is coming up every day. So we created a bookmark web page where all these different tools that is being developed by different partner agencies can be put together. So this is an example for Fiji. As you can see, many web application and links are there. So just coming to this tool or page, a decision maker can find anything regarding rural electrification, public bus, e-bus. This is the latest example from Solomon Island. We also created a bookmark page where all of their different tools and web services can be having a placeholder. So I think I'm out of time. I'll stop here with two specific points. One is when we make a decision, it must be risk informed. Otherwise, if we just invest on something and we realize we are increasing the risk, that kind of breaks the cycle of sustainable development. And finally, I would like to emphasize the point of data reliability, because more and more data is coming out every day, but we must make sure our data is reliable. Otherwise, the decision we make will increase the risk, not mitigate or reduce it. I'll stop here. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Very much, Khaled, for providing those information, but also through your presentation, I can see there's a lot of Pacific context, and we acknowledge the work that you have assisted our countries with. And I think on your key takeaways, the tool on risk-informed decision must be embedded into policy and planning. I think it's something that we can all relate to. And of course, the data reliability. I think you also spoke on the challenges that are present in the countries of the Pacific in terms of, there's a lot of tools available, but also the capacity to actually implement those tools to inform decision-making is something that I think we need long-term capacity building, but also sustaining the capacity within the countries to actually implement those tools that have been provided for governments and our partners. So thank you very much for those remarks, Khaled. I would like to now invite my colleague from SPC, the program manager for Digital Earth Pacific, Ms. Ndiswa, and she will speak to us on Digital Earth Pacific using Earth observation at scale to enable decision-making for the Pacific people. Thank you, Ms. Ndiswa, and welcome. And I give you the floor for your presentation. Thank you. Ndiswa, can you hear me? Sorry, you're on mute.
Is
There
it
you
working
go.
now?
Yes, I
Can
can
you
hear you
hear me?
loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. A word of appreciation to the organizers for the invitation to SPC to share the activities that we are doing with the countries and partners. And I see that from the chat, we've got participants from all over the world. So that's quite appreciated, the level of interest that is shown on Earth observations for climate action in the Pacific. So maybe just to start, the Pacific community, as most people know us as SPC, we've been around since 1947 and specifically set up by the Pacific countries to provide scientific and technical support to countries. And this is due to the challenges that countries face in terms of ensuring that they build internal capacities throughout all the sectors. And you can see that currently SPC supports over 8 sectors in the Pacific. Earth observations data is seen as one of those cross-cutting application or data sets that can be used. So Digital Earth Pacific is an integral program at SPC, which means we support all the way from fisheries on coastal and marine ecosystems all the way to geoscience and resources. But specifically today, we'll focus on the work on climate change, which of course, with climate change, it cuts across all of these areas as well. I mentioned that part of why SPC has been established was to make sure that countries have the requisite scientific and technical capabilities. And Earth observations and the delivery of Earth observation also support the challenges that countries are faced with around the geographical isolation. You can imagine that if you are a small administration and you have to manage over 300 islands, access to those islands is a challenge, but you would like to understand what the natural resources are held and also the change in the environment that's occurring there. Mainly because one of the other challenges the Pacific is faced with is this disproportionate risk from climate change and environmental degradation. Our markets are very small and our populations are small. And what these challenges really calls us to do is to make sure that we come up with innovative solutions that make sure that no one is left behind, no island is left behind, and the data benefits all the countries. So with Digital Earth Pacific, this is a program that we've co-designed with countries. That co-design process started back in 2019 through a Talanoa that was held in Sydney. But we really kicked off on this through a user requirements and needs assessment activities that were undertaken between 2020 and 2021. Some of those workshops were virtual because that was the time of COVID lockdown, and some were face-to-face. We also understand that needs assessment is an ongoing process, because as countries learn of the capability and what the capability do, they realize what other application areas the Earth observations can be used for. You will see that in the tiers, in terms of the priority areas that we were able to draw out based on the needs assessment, climate change related issues come up, from your hazard impact mapping to your coastline changes, as well as mangroves detection, especially if we start talking about ecosystems. So we talk about Digital Earth Pacific as being a public good. It's a regional infrastructure. We process over 750,000 satellite images. If you were to imagine that you're going to store all this data, each country is going to store this amount of data, have a computing power, and develop its own algorithms, it's pretty much a huge task for any one institution or any one country to undertake. Hence, we've developed it as a regional program. So the idea behind this is to use cloud native, the in-house developed cloud native platform, which uses most of the tools that you are seeing there. That then leads us to developing Earth observation products that then lead to the intelligence for climate resilience. Some of the regional products that we have, back in 2023, when we launched the first product, we only had 3 products at our launch in 2023. I'm quite happy to say, as of last week, we launched 6 more products. So we're now at 9 regional products. Let me just mention that when I say 9 regional products, I mean that every island in the Pacific is covered by these regional products. If you're looking at the coastline change, for over the 24 years of coastline change is mapped out for each and every island in the Pacific. You can go into the data platform, which is freely available. And I'll have our website shown at the end, and you can see how your own island has been changing over time. Similarly for all these other products as well. I'll just run through some examples. So one is the land cover and land use product in Tonga. This one, we're still doing it at national level. It's one of the few that we're doing at national level. As you would know, with land cover and land use, one of the major important things is being able to detect where change has occurred. We've partnered with our statistics division to looking at how can we use the land cover maps from 2018 to 2024 to detect changes in the ecosystem within Tonga. And the pilot results of that show, for example, that there's been a change of about 15 hectares increase in forest cover and also increase in wetlands. But we've also seen a decrease in mangroves that have turned from mangroves that have turned into built up areas. I mentioned that we've got over 20 years of coastline change. The previous speaker has made the reference to decision support tools. It's one thing to have the geospatial layers, but what does that information really mean? So we've now developed a dashboard for the coastline data set. And as you can see, if you go to the dashboard, you can choose your country. At first, the first level that you are seeing is hotspots of where change from 2 meters and above has occurred, and that could be accretion or erosion. So we're not distinguishing between, it's just showing where changes occurred. You include that with the local knowledge, you're able to make decisions. But importantly, we look at what are the populations as well as the infrastructure in terms of buildings that might actually be impacted. As we zoom into a specific hotspot, you see the difference, the changes that happened in the statistics, because the statistics are related to within that particular hotspot, where are your vulnerabilities in terms of population and your vulnerabilities in terms of mangroves or your buildings. And this is for Fiji. The next example will be on cyclones, and here we would all note now we're talking about climate induced loss and damage. It becomes very important for us to have information pre-cyclones, post-cyclones, and also on recovery. So here you see the cyclone Yasa in Fiji, and pre-cyclone you can see the density on how dense the mangroves are. We're moving from 0 to 100, and post cyclone you can see that the mangroves are not as dense as they were. So the cyclone occurred in 2021. 2022 you start seeing recovery, and 2023 they becoming denser and denser. And this is quite important, of course, when we're talking loss and damage, and also supporting community programs to understand the impact and the growth of their mangroves as we do replanting and strategies for this. The latest product that we have that we found the agriculture and forestry community is very excited about is a vegetation height product. Here I will point you to the green area that's quite green, and now you see a blue that has actually started to come up there, and that is due to logging. So you can see the logging happening in 2024, and when we look and again you can start to see from the logging happening and post logging happening. One of the things that tends to happen with our rainfalls in the region is the sedimentation that comes from the runoff that comes on land, and therefore then comes to impact our marine habitat. So with the marine habitat mapping, what is helpful to map this over time consistently in the same areas is we start getting an understanding and viewing of the changes that what happens up inland and how it impacts our climate, our coastal areas. The gray in this map, you would see that is the sediments coming from the runoff, and the blue is seagrass and the green is algae. And you can see after Cyclone Harold that we're starting to get more and more gray and less blues, which means that more of our coastal areas is being inhabited by runoff sediments, and we're losing the seagrass and other marine habitats. This, one might say, doesn't have that much to do with climate change, but we are oceans people, and we for these vast oceans on our land. And one of the things that we realize is we do not have updated navigational charts for most of our, if not all of our islands. Most of them are from the 1913s or 1800s. The nearshore bathymetry derived from Sentinel data allows us to at least see up to 30-meter depth on our coast. And you can see here on just that one point, it shows 2-meter depth for those who are fishing, either as artisan fisheries or for pleasure or for economic reasons. This becomes very useful to understand our shorelines better. And the last example I would use is the water observation from space. And this is in Nauru. And one of the things, because our atolls are so low-lying, when these huge events or extreme weather events occur, we find that even the infrastructure, like the airport runaways, get impacted. This is a data set that occurs over 10 years now for this, which then means that for disaster preparedness, you can already detect where you always have inundation occur. Therefore, those become your flood zone areas. And you can see the red there showing where inundation over the runway in the Nauru runway has occurred. We see the same thing in Tuvalu, for example. Also inland, you can see where the communities and the houses are, where they also get inundated during flood events. We can also see how long that inundation lasts with this kind of data. So I'm just going to move on to.
And Tisua,
yes.
Can I kindly ask that you wrap the presentation, please?
Okay, thank you so much. This will be my last slide. So one of the asks from the organizers was that we show the application. And one of the applications we have is through usage of Earth observations data. The Tuvalu government has been able to leverage over 50 million investment for a climate adaptation project. And we would know that in the Pacific, we're currently celebrating the ICJ decision. We're quite happy that Digital Earth Pacific was used during the ICJ submission to show how we can actually calculate with the coastline change. So that's just going to play in the background, and you can read. So I will stop over there and say thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ntiswa, and we congratulate you and your team for the work that has been delivered utilizing the Digital Earth Observation Pacific. But also, I think it is now a proven innovative solutions that countries can tap into for building resilience. And in the different sectors, I think you're contextualizing the solutions into the different sectors, which is very, very I think interesting, but also it informed decision making for our vulnerable communities. And yeah, we admire the work that you deliver from SPC. And we would also like to continue the partnership, because some of those tools could also be showcased as part of our Pacific Climate Change Innovation Lounge as proven innovative solutions that are fit for purpose for our countries. Thank you, Ntiswa. And I would like to now turn to my colleague, Mr. Remy Andre Oli, the Chief Operating Officer, and he will take us through solution from space to solutions, the private sector innovations in Earth observation for climate action. And I think that is quite an interesting, another interesting presentation to see the private sector innovations in the Earth observation for climate action. Over to you, Mr. Remy.
Hello, Falava, Bulavinaka, Yao. Hello, everyone. First, I would like to thank the organizer, PCCC and SPREP, and the co-host, SPC, to give me the opportunity to be here today. My name is Remy Andreoli, and I'm Chief Operating Officer at Quintessence P2I Ltd, which is an Australian international company based in Queensland. And I'm really delighted to be here today to talk about private sector innovation in Earth observation for climate action. My own journey started more than 20 years ago, first as a young researcher at the European Space Agency, and then as a rapid mapping expert for natural disaster at the University of Strasbourg in France. And for the last 16 years, I've been living and working across the Pacific region, developing cloud platforms and special services to help decision makers make territories more resilient and sustainable. So the awareness of and the official recognition of climate change go back more than 30 years ago. Even in the 1970s, we saw early warnings, yet the trend never really reversed. And today, the effects of climate change are no longer abstract or media only. They are really visible on our everyday life. Coastline eroding, rainfall becoming more aggressive, and the increasing of water shortage, just as some example. It's no longer a distant concern. It's happening right where we live now. And during the same decades, the first Earth observation satellites were launched. They helped us measure climate change and track transformation in our landscape, like urban growth, deforestation, desertification. But in the last 10 years, a silent revolution has taken place. The number of satellites in orbit has increased by a factor of 16 to nearly 1,500 sensors today. At the same time, we have seen exponential growth in internet speed, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence capabilities, allowing deep learning over datasets of several terabytes. So this is the era of new space, a quiet but transformative era. So why I call it a silent revolution? Just a few years ago, the minister of Tuvalu made a speech standing knee-deep in the water to show the world what's coming. And recently, the Maldives signed a declaration underwater. And who's next? Do we have to wait the next long cover release in 5 years? But the revolution is silent because today we finally have the tools to move from being spectators of climate change to being actors. Real-time information change everything. It allows us to respond immediately and measure the impact of our action as they happen. So here's an image taken from the suburbs of Nouméa at 5 a.m. in the morning in October 2024. There is nothing spectacular on this image, no spectacular change or something dramatic. But this image is really, really important because 10 years ago, this would not have been possible to have this image at 5 a.m. in the morning. Back then, satellites must pass once a day if we were lucky. And now we get multiple passes, 8, 10, and more every day, from sunrise to sunset. And this frequency is what enables us to track change almost as it happens. And it doesn't stop at daylight. We now observe at night, even through clouds or bad weather. And satellites are not just beautiful images. They are physical measurements, temperature, greenhouse gases, radar backscatter, and much more. And all these parameters help us monitor territories in real time. And because observations are regular and predictable, we can rely on them to understand the present and anticipate the future. So remember, in the 60 or 70 years ago, when the first weather satellites were launched, today, if you want to know the weather, you don't buy the raw satellite image or build an analytic change to predict tomorrow's rain. It doesn't make sense. You just open an app on your phone or open a website on your desktop. And that's exactly what we are doing now with Earth observation. We are developing cloud platforms to take care of the complex data processing and deliver ready-to-use insights when you need them. And we've been pioneered in doing this right here in the Pacific. And the output isn't just maps. Decision makers don't want pixels, they want answers. And the platforms deliver reports that are clear, visual, and actionable. Results are quantified, explained, and visualized through charts, numbers, and maps. And here's an example, a monthly shoreline monitoring report for highly dynamic coastal sector. But we also produce similar reports on water quality, freshwater, vegetation yields, agricultural zone, urban areas, and bare soil. So let me show you a few real examples in the Pacific region. This example comes from the Arutura Atoll in French Polynesia, where we monitor algal bloom every 5 days. And these blooms affect pearl farming, a major local economic activity. And by observing them early in the warm season, we can anticipate when conditions are becoming critical and act before production is impacted. Another case, marine spatial planning. and specifically managing human activities across the ocean and the coastline. And when you look only at AIS data, our islands and atoll might seem empty, but in reality, these are living spaces, a place where multiple activities coexist, and managing potential conflict, observing regularly all the human activities are increasing or overlaps between them is essential for sustainable development of the coastal and lagoon area. And the same apply offshore. Fishing, transit and these deep sea resources exploration require continuous monitoring. And with satellite data and platform capabilities, we can now track these activities transparently and in near real time, helping ensure that economic growth and environmental protection go hand in hand. In the Pacific, over 90% of the population lives within 3 kilometers of the coastline. And until recently, most studies were retrospective, describing what happened in the past. And today we can monitor the shoreline every month across large areas, at the country scale, with almost no delay. That's a complete shift from observing the past to managing what's happening now and the present. And when we combine different types of satellite measurements, we can estimate coastal erosion and ground subsidence. Subsidence means the ground is slowly sinking. And here in French Polynesia, sea level is rising 3 millimeters per year. But in the red areas on the right, the land is sinking by another 3 millimeters per year, meaning people there feel a sea level rise of 6 millimeters per year locally. That doubles the perceived impact and show why all the spatial data matters so much, and we can now manage at a very fine scale the coastal area. And climate change also means more intense rainfall, washing away soils and destabilizing slopes. And with modern satellite radar technology, we can now detect ground movement with millimetric precision and even forecast landslide or slope instability from 7 to 15 days in advance. This saves lives and helps authorities plan where to build safely. And our best weapon against climate change is still our natural environment. And using this new technology, we can inventory, measure, and monitor our natural resources and biodiversity every day, counting trees, measure trees yields. And we can see how vegetation is coping, how ecosystems are recovering, and how we can protect them better. Healthy ecosystems are our first line of defense against the impact of climate change.
Mr. Remy, yes, okay, thank you.
Yeah, to conclude, we are living in an amazing time where space technology, cloud computing, and local action finally come together, and we can move from reacting to predicting, from describing to deciding. And thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you very much, Remy, for your presentation. And I think your work is actually making the Pacific more sustainable in the context of resilience using even the AI real-time platforms. I think everybody is moving into that, and I thank you and I acknowledge your work, but also your time to take us through the silent observation, as you call it. And I think that is a powerful message in the context of observation technologies and the use of that in the climate action and resilience and building resilience. So thank you. Colleagues, I would like to now convene the panel discussion while we have our esteemed speakers online, but also I have my colleague here. She's the special planning analysis specialist for protected areas here at SPREP. And recently we launched the Emalook Regional Earth Observation Center here at SPREP. And really the idea is to foster global and regional collaboration to advance Earth observation and satellite data for climate solutions. Ms. Kasanga Tora, my colleague here at SPREP, and who's also very instrumental in the implementation of the regional Emalook Center. I would like to invite Kasanga to briefly summarize the role of the Emalook Regional Earth Observation Center here at SPREP, but also look into how can SPREP as the regional entity that administer the Emalook Regional Observation Center can help build long-term partnerships. And I thank you. So you have two questions, Kasanga. Could you briefly tell us about the role of the Emalook Regional Earth Center, but also how can this center help build long-term partnerships in the context of Earth observations for building climate action? Thank you, Ofa. My response to the question will be in the form of a presentation. As you can see there on the slide, can you move to the next slide, please? Yes, as Ofa mentioned, the center was launched in September of this year in honor of the late Emalook. You can see her picture on the slide. A late colleague in our Earth observation work through Geoscience Australia. Emma was a dedicated geospatial practitioner and advocate for environmental sustainability. So the center is established to commemorate her legacy and continue her vision of bringing technology with community needs, ensuring Pacific nations have the right tools for sustainable development. Emma also championed the role of Pacific Island country and territories, governments in leading Earth observation, conversation, and intervention in the Pacific. So the establishment of the center, can you move to the next slide, please? As I mentioned, the center was launched in September of this year around the margin of the SPREP meeting. Through our vision of bridging technology with community and ensuring Pacific nations have the right tools for sustainable development. As we all know that the Pacific Island countries and territories face unique challenges such as sea level rise, remoteness, vulnerability to extreme weather and small island and small land areas. So satellite data can specifically provide valuable data and valuable information. So the Emalook Center will, as you can see on the map on the next slide, as you can see the vast area of the Pacific. And if you look at the map on your left, it's just a small, you can't see the land area. So the small size of the Pacific is one of a major challenge in terms of capturing data to cover all these small islands. So the Emalook Center will serve as a regional hub for environmental monitoring and geospatial innovation, offering a suite of services to support evidence-based outputs for better informed decision-making. Can you move to the next slide? As you can see on this slide, the team has been providing the support through training, mostly on GIS, but the launch of this Earth observation, it's like a milestone for SPREP that we're able to set up this center that is going to provide more support in terms of satellite data and satellite support to our region. Next slide, please. So in terms of the specific gaps to be addressed by the center through EO technologies, as we've heard in the previous presentation, some of the climate change challenges that we face, sea level rise, coastal changes, coastal erosion, coral bleaching, and through the center, through the data that will be collected from the center, we'll be able to provide this support to our members. As I mentioned, the center will act as an observatory where we collect all the data that we're able to collect through our partnership, which I'm going to mention about that in the next slide. So just an example of some of the work that we did through the work for the 2022, the volcanic eruption in Tonga. So through the support we got from the UNITA, we were able to use the data to provide some maps in terms of the changes in the coastline and extent to which the plumes from the volcano was able to be mapped, and then show that those information. And also to provide established infrastructure to enable access to data. And also because, you know, some of our countries do not have access to good internet connectivity. So through the center, we'll be able to have this platform that established infrastructure that can download the information that we can also share to our members. And then we'll continue to provide the technical support through mentoring. Once the center is established, we'll have mentoring. We have a participant or members coming over to the center, and we also provide the training through support. The next one, please. Yeah, just some example of the services that we will be able to provide, like coastal line change, and as we've heard in the previous presentation, some of the work we are currently doing with the project, just mapping proposed areas for protection. So this is using the open source satellite information that we have. But in future, we'll be able to through the partners that we'll be that we're currently working on, and some of the partners that SPREP has signed agreement with. So they will be able to provide this information to support our countries in terms of Earth observation and satellite information. This is one of the gaps that we've identified that countries have shared with us, that they need data to be able to do land cover change mapping for informed decision making. So these are some of the gaps that has been highlighted by, you know, through the training that we have provided to countries. So through the data that will be collected and shared through our partnership, so we'll be able to update and also share better information and then better output for the different countries that we have in the region. And also with all this information, we'll be able to support with the multilateral agreement reporting, you know, that we have. As we know that SPREP like coordinated some of these activities. So with all this information, this will be able to support the countries in terms of reporting, you know, national reporting, international obligations. So just in terms of the strengthening partnership, I've just put up there some of the photos that were captured during the launch. So SPREP can act as a regional conduit or facilitator, establish formal partnership. Currently, SPREP have partnership between USGS. We also have it with IRD, but we're currently having a partnership with the UNITA, so with UNICEF. So this partnership is currently being finalized. So once we have that established, and then we'll be able to share information, and also the organization can come through SPREP to provide training support as well. We also have the Pacific Earth Observation Network. So this will be the network that will be enhanced to build capacity and also learning, share learning and knowledge exchange. Also through the region, we can do a regional data infrastructure and tools, leverage regional coordination, long-term sustainability and ownership that can work with donor partners, ensure the sustained access and use of EO data, and then to become the regional center, which is what we want to be, to become the regional center for excellence and geospatial support for the region. Just next. These are some of our partners that we currently have. You have USGS and IRD, and then we also have UNITA and UNICEF, and also with the regional, the Pacific Data Hub, as well as the Pacific GS Remote Sensing Council. In conclusion, so the Earth observation will help us to empower, to connect with our partners, and also to deliver outputs that inform better decisions. Just the next one. Just on the next slide is just to acknowledge the support from the Emalook Trust, the ACP-MEA3 project, as well as the New Zealand, the NZM-FED that was able to support one of our team members to continue the work that she's doing here at SPREP. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cassandra. I think you wrapped up nicely on the Empower, Connect, and Deliver, you know, as part of the work that you do. And I acknowledge the work that you are actually assisting the countries with, and not just on, you know, through the Emalook Regional EO Center, but also your work as a professional in this area.
from SPREP. And I think that empower, connect, and deliver leads us to the next question. I'm afraid I have to shorten the time for your interventions. So this question is for JEXA, UNICEF, and Digital Earth Pacific. We all can agree that there is we share a common vision and mission in promoting the use of Earth observation technologies for climate action, but also for building resilience, capacity building, but also awareness raising for our countries. In 2 minutes each, 2 minutes each for our colleagues, how do you envision collaboration to amplify the impact and avoid duplication in the Pacific region in the context of the use of tools, on Earth observation technologies? We share tools, but we also, I think, we present tools that are useful in the context of the Pacific, which is, I think SPC alluded to the fact that we are small population and small administration. We can't afford to burden our countries with so many tools, but we can forge a collaboration. How do you envision that collaboration? You have 2 minutes each. Our colleague from JEXA, UNICEF, and Digital Pacific. So maybe JEXA, you can go first.
Well, thank you for the question. Regarding the collaboration with UNOSAT, hello again, Kare-san. It's very nice to meet you online. And actually, with UNOSAT, we've already have a good collaboration from the viewpoint of response phase of the disaster management cycle. So as Natsumi-san introduced at first, when we received the emergency observation request to the Sentinel Asia, and the request is escalated to the International Disaster Charter, we have to assign a project manager to coordinate among the disaster management organizations and space agencies for the smooth operation. But sometimes it is hard for us to find the appropriate person to be a project manager. And at that time, we are asking UNOSAT to be a project manager, and they are kindly accept the project manager's role. So from the viewpoint of this, we are already having a good collaboration. And through the Kare-san's presentation, I was really moved your way of thinking that not only developing the capacity of the Pacific Island members, but also sustaining the capacity of training from the viewpoint of training. So we, Sentinel Asia, would also like to encourage not only the capacity development, but also sustain the capacity. So from the collaboration with UNOSAT, this is our insight. And the collaboration with SPC, since SPC is already a member of Sentinel Asia, and as I introduced through our presentation, we plan to organize the capacity building opportunity together with SPC. So we also have the good collaboration with SPC as well. But regarding the Digital Earth Pacific, for me, this is the first time to learn it in detail. So thank you very much for Andy Soa-san for your presentation. And as for the duplication, we didn't find any duplication for Earth observation data use except this disaster risk reduction. But I think not that duplication, but we can strengthen our relationship and further collaborate from the viewpoint of disaster risk reduction as well. And if Andy Soa-san has your schedule allows, we'd like to invite you to our annual meeting, which will be held next February. So in detail, I'd like to inform you later on. And if we could have a good conversation at that time, it is very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, JEXA, our colleague from JEXA, and I think that will be a good platform for a meeting in person. It's at the forum next February, so we look forward to the invitation for especially for our panel members.
UNOSAT, how do you envision collaboration in this context?
Thank you very much. Very tough question because the world has evolved so much. For example, I was showing you examples from our common sensing projects 2018, 2019. But what we used to do that time, that's not relevant anymore. For example, our colleagues showed application of frontier technology, land subsidence, predicting the shoreline change. So all of this new emerging application is coming up, and world is evolving at a very rapid pace, as we know. For example, 2018, nobody was using AI in their daily life. Now, I'm sure everybody in this panel is using AI for something. So going back to the point, my colleague Yuki-san from JAXA just mentioned, capacity development remains the key. For example, we have delivered maybe 20 odd trainings in Fiji, Solomon, and Vanuatu. That doesn't mean we should not do more, because now the technology has evolved. We should do more capacity development now, because now we can show how AI can be leveraged in decision making and analysis. And in Pacific, one key challenge is staff turnover. Basically, government entities will lose some of their key experts every few years. That's a reality in Pacific. That's what I've learned. So we also need to develop the new pipeline of experts who will serve the government. Because in every government ministry, you need one or two experts. So through capacity development, we should also focus on building new pool of and generation of experts from youth who will be then serving the government. So these are my 2 cents on capacity development. Another point I want to mention that has to be a collective effort is to focus on data quality and data reliability, because every day we will see a global data set being released, but we do not know much about their reliability, so as you are from Pacific, you know your context and your country more than anybody else. So you will be the one to judge whether a data set is fitting the reality or not. So I don't know how it will be done, but this is something to think about. In the future, how do we assess reliability of newly published or newly released data sets? Because if the data is not reliable, the decision will also suffer from uncertainty. So these are my few elements I wanted to focus. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Khaled, for those remarks. And I think we can all agree that capacity development, capacity training, sustaining the capacity and building the new pipeline of experts, for the Pacific is very crucial in this context. And that leads to NDISWA. And I know that, you have amazing outcomes as part of implementation of the Digital Earth Pacific. The question again is, how do you envision collaboration in this context to probably draw maximum benefits for our Pacific on the use of EO technologies?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ofa, and thank to Yuki-san and Khaled for giving those great insights on areas that we could collaborate on. I think maybe I'll start with the fundamentals, and that is the reason why regional institutions like SPC and SPREP exist, and maybe make a call that also supports what Yuki-san has said. SPC is already participating and a member with the Sentinel Asia program, and through that support also having access to the disaster charter. So this access for post disaster data is quite crucial, but more so for when now institutions like SPC and SPREP will also have this now as well, where we have the capability to process the Earth observations data that comes out of these missions, therefore being that much closer to delivering timely to our members, because when the project managers and the technical analysis is being done from afar, it takes time for the products to get to our members. So I guess my call is this continued engagement and strengthening the partnership with SPC and SPREP in making sure that as institutions that are closer to the ground and closer to the members, we're being used as conduits for sustaining that capacity development. And Khalid makes a very good point around retention, but it's not just retention. 2 people in a country being GIS and remote sensing experts is not enough, you know. And when those 2 people leave, you start from scratch. But regional institutions like ourselves are built to be that safety net for countries. So it's that call to strengthen that. I think also, you know, there's quite a lot in the beneficiation that we are getting from Sentinel Asia, and also the UNOSAT programs in terms of data, getting the data from the satellite owners. For post-disaster, I would maybe like to put to our colleagues that we start thinking about access to pre-disaster, because now we're starting to talk about loss and damage. And that means that we need to have the before data in order to do the post-disaster comparison. Right now, we can compare with the lower resolution data, but the post-disaster very high resolution. So these are apples and bananas. So a strategy maybe that we can all think about is how do we do the pre-disaster collection to inform the preparedness strategies of the countries. And I can't agree more on the capacity building. And thank you so much to Yuki-san for the invitation to Sentinel Asia in February 2026. Our disaster risk team would definitely have that invitation as well, and so we'll come as a collective as they in the front line, and we're sort of like supporting from the back. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andiswa. And I think before I jump in onto your remarks, I actually admire your passion in the space, as well as our colleagues that have spoken today. And I agree with you. We are a proven regional mechanism that was actually set up and adjusted by the countries, and that we should leverage the partnership on that trust, you know, by our member countries, that we become the regional mechanism to deliver, you know, based on country priorities. And I think we look forward to, you know, building this mechanism, and we are happy from the Pacific Climate Change Center and SPREP. We are happy to making that connection and forging the partnership stronger between the regional mechanisms that are available for us. But also, I think, you know, we need to have that continued engagement. And Kasanga, my colleague Kasanga, have just mentioned to me that we also need to become a member, Yuki-san, of that JEXA network, and we look forward to be guided by you on how to actually become a member. I think with these platforms, if we become members of those platforms, it also forged the partnership and envision the collaboration that we need between the organizations. And the last question, in 2 minutes, we will wrap up. So I would like to give the last question to my colleague from Quintessence. From a user perspective, and I think you can speak on behalf of us as users, what are the key gaps and needs that must be addressed to promote the effective use of Earth observation technologies in climate change planning and action? You have 2 minutes, Mr. Remy, to respond. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, and I will try to be as short as 2 minutes. From a user perspective, I see 3 main gaps and 1 structural challenge that we need to address to make Earth observation truly effective for climate planning and action. First, there is a persistent awareness and capacity gap. Many policymakers and technical officers still think of satellite data as something static, as maps that describe the past. rather than a living flow of indicator that can track environmental change almost in real time. So we need to build both technical capacity and decision-making culture around these new tools. And in other words, the decision maker should not only learn how to use Earth observation data, but also how to ask the right questions, how to translate their policy objective into measurable indicator that can be monitored from space. The second, the monitoring capacities must be embedded from the very beginning of policy design. Too often, Earth observation data come at the end of the process when we need to evaluate what has already happened. Instead, we should integrate monitoring framework and Earth observation-based indicator into the key performance indicator of public policies themselves. This ensures that climate action are measurable, traceable, and accountable through their implementation, not just retrospectively. Third, there is a growing trust gap between science and perception. In many contexts, we tend to trust information circulating on social media more readily than scientifically validated information. So this is a real current challenge. We must invest in communication and transparency so that Earth observation, information, and technologies become not only technically sound, but also socially trusted. And if people understand where the data come from, how accurate they are, and what they actually means, then Earth observation becomes a powerful instrument of trust and confidence in the public debate. There's already existing place like the PGRSC Pacific Island GIS and Remote Sensing User Conference that is hosted yearly, and this year last week of November to do that kind of promotion and capacity building. And finally, there is an issue of sustainability of services. Public institutions often try to internalize all the Earth observation capacities, developing their own system and infrastructure, but in today's constrained environment, financially, climatically, and institutionally, this is not always sustainable. So maintaining in-house system can be costly and fragile, especially after budget funding ends, and we can see what is happening today. Instead, we should encourage partnership with the private sector, which can ensure continuity, innovation, and economic value creation around Earth observation services. So in other words, let's turn Earth observation from one-off project expense into a long-term economic ecosystem. So in short, we want Earth observation to really drive climate action. We must move from maps to metrics, from data to decision, and from project to ecosystem.
Thank you very much, Remy. And I think you spoke on behalf of all of us who are users in the context of, we need to have that translation of our policy indicators to something that's measurable, utilizing EO technologies. We also need to start monitoring the capacity that are there, but also the sustainability. I think that's a big one, the sustainability of our services, utilizing the EO technologies for climate action. Colleagues, I'm afraid that we have to wrap up because we've gone 2 minutes over time. But I note that there is a question online, which is the person is keen to hear about how the EO data is being used for future climate risk analysis and then informing strategic investment cases for regional infrastructure and community risk management. And I think if we can have that circulated to the panel today, Daichi-san and Katie, so they can put in writing their responses to this question. And I thank you for that. I think that's a huge and critical question that needs to be addressed by our speakers. Colleagues, I would like to now bring us back to conclude our discussion today. And I hope we have demonstrated the role of Earth observation technologies
in the context of enhancing climate resilience across the Pacific. But we also highlighted best practices in applying earth technologies and data for climate change action. So I would like to now take this opportunity to thank our distinguished panelists for their input and also your contribution on how we foster collaboration amongst our institutions so that we maximize the benefit of all those EO technologies. And of course, I look forward to fostering partnership, but also strengthening the connection between your organization and SPREP and the Pacific Climate Change Center. Again, a big malo pito, and a thank you to all of our participants online, but also our participants here in the room. And before I close, I would also like to acknowledge my colleague from Verition, Katie, for managing the platform for the webinar today. And lastly, let me acknowledge the ISCCR project by JICA and our SPC Digital Earth Pacific for their partnership. And now we are going to close the session, and thank you again for your attendance and your contributions. So far,